The day I quit my job was the day I finally admitted to myself that I was broken. Not the kind of broken that could be fixed with a bandage or a kind word, but the deep, bone-weary brokenness that comes from years of being ground down by a world that didn't care if you lived or died. My name is David Miller, and for 5 years, I had been a mid-level accountant at Sterling Financial, a massive corporation that swallowed souls and spat out statistics. I was good at my job. I was meticulous, efficient, and invisible. I was the kind of employee who showed up early, stayed late, and never complained, and it had cost me everything. My wife Rachel had left me 2 years ago. She hadn't left me for another man or because she had fallen out of love. She had left me because I was never there. I was always at the office, always chasing the next promotion, always trying to prove that I was worth something. I had missed birthdays, anniversaries, school plays. I had missed the slow, creeping erosion of our marriage. And one day she had simply packed her bags and walked out the door, taking our daughter Mia with her. Mia was 7 years old. She had her mother's eyes, big and brown and full of questions. She was the light of my life, the only thing that kept me going when everything else seemed dark. But after Rachel left, I only saw Mia on weekends. It was a custody arrangement that had been hammered out in a cold, impersonal courtroom, and it was killing me. Every Sunday evening when I dropped her back at Rachel's house, I felt a piece of my heart tear away. I was missing her grow up. I was missing the little moments, the bedtime stories, the morning pancakes, the scraped knees and the whispered secrets. I was a part-time father and it was destroying me. The final straw came on a Tuesday. It was a gray, drizzly day, the kind that seeped into your bones and made you feel like you would never be warm again. I was in a meeting with my boss, a man named Gerald Thompson, a soulless creature with a perpetual sneer and a talent for making people feel small. He was going over my quarterly performance review, and it was not good. "You're falling behind, Miller," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "Your numbers are down. Your productivity is slipping. I'm starting to wonder if you're still committed to this company." I stared at him, my hands clenched into fists under the table. "I've been working 60-hour weeks," I said, my voice tight. "I've been coming in on weekends. I don't know what more you want from me." "I want results," Gerald said, his eyes cold. "I want you to be the man I hired 5 years ago, the man who was hungry, the man who was willing to do whatever it took to succeed. You've become complacent, Miller. You've become soft." Soft? The word hit me like a physical blow. I had given everything to this company. I had sacrificed my marriage, my relationship with my daughter, my mental health. I had let them grind me down until there was almost nothing left, and now they were telling me it wasn't enough. "Maybe I have become soft," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Maybe I've realized that there are more important things in life than spreadsheets and quarterly reports." Gerald laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "More important things, like what? Your little girl, the one you only see on weekends. Don't make me laugh, Miller. You're a cog in a machine, a replaceable cog, and if you can't keep up, we'll find someone who can." Something inside me snapped. The carefully constructed walls I had built around myself, the walls that had kept me going through the long nights and the endless days, crumbled into dust. I looked at Gerald, this petty, cruel man who had never known a moment of real struggle, and I felt a surge of clarity. "You know what?" I said, my voice steady. "You're right, I am a cog, but I'm done being your cog. I quit." Gerald's eyes widened in surprise. "What?" "You heard me," I said, standing up. "I quit. I'm done. You can find someone else to run your spreadsheets. Someone who hasn't given up everything that matters to them for a paycheck and a pat on the head." I walked out of the meeting room, my heart pounding in my chest. I could hear Gerald calling after me, his voice filled with fury, but I didn't look back. I walked to my desk, gathered my belongings, and walked out of the building for the last time. The rain was falling harder now, a cold, relentless drizzle that matched my mood. I stood on the sidewalk, looking up at the towering glass and steel building that had consumed the last 5 years of my life, and I felt a strange sense of liberation. I had no job, no savings, no plan. But for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. I went home to my small, cramped apartment, the one I had been renting since Rachel left. It was a sad, sterile place, filled with furniture that didn't belong to me and memories of a life that had slipped through my fingers. I sat on the couch, staring at the wall, trying to figure out what to do next. And then I made a decision. I was going to get my daughter back. I was going to prove to Rachel, to the courts, to the world that I could be the father Mia deserved. I was going to fight for her. The next few weeks were a blur of meetings with lawyers, court appearances, and sleepless nights. I was fighting for custody, and it was the hardest thing I had ever done. Rachel was fighting me every step of the way, her lawyer painting me as an absentee father who had abandoned his family for his career. It wasn't true, but it didn't matter. The court was sympathetic to Rachel, the mother who had stayed, the mother who had sacrificed. I was losing. I could feel it in my bones. The judge was skeptical, the social worker was cold, and my lawyer was pessimistic. I was a single father with no job and no prospects. I was a loser. And then, one evening, about 3 weeks after I had quit my job, there was a knock at my door. I opened it, expecting it to be my lawyer or maybe Rachel come to gloat. But it wasn't. It was Julian Sterling. Julian Sterling was the CEO of Sterling Financial, the man who had built the empire that had consumed my life. He was a legend in the business world, a billionaire with a reputation for being ruthless, brilliant, and utterly unapproachable. I had seen him from a distance, of course, striding through the hallways of the corporate headquarters, surrounded by an entourage of sycophants and assistants. But I had never spoken to him. I had never even been in the same room as him. And now he was standing on my doorstep, looking like he had just stepped out of a magazine. He was tall, with sharp features and penetrating gray eyes that seemed to see right through you. He was dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, his dark hair swept back from his face. He looked completely out of place in my dingy apartment building. "Mr. Miller," he said, his voice smooth and commanding. "May I come in?" I stared at him, my mind reeling. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I think we need to talk," he said, his eyes searching mine. "About your resignation, about your daughter, about the mess you've gotten yourself into." I stepped aside, my heart pounding. He walked past me into the apartment, his eyes scanning the cramped, cluttered space. He didn't look judgmental exactly. He looked curious. "I know you're probably wondering why I'm here," he said, turning to face me. "And the truth is, I'm not entirely sure myself. But when I heard that you had quit, that you were fighting for custody of your daughter, something compelled me to come see you." "How did you even know about me?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I was just an accountant. I was nobody." "You were one of my best employees," Julian said, his voice soft. "I know everything that goes on in my company, Mr. Miller. I know who works hard and who doesn't. I know who's loyal and who's just collecting a paycheck. And I know that you were the kind of employee that any CEO would kill to have. You were dedicated. You were smart. You were reliable. And I let you slip through my fingers." I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You let me slip through your fingers. I quit. I walked out. And I'm not sorry I did." "I know," Julian said. "And that's why I'm here, because I want to make it right. I want to offer you your job back, but not as an accountant, as something more." I stared at him, my mind reeling. "I don't understand," I said. "Why would you do this? Why would you care?" Julian was silent for a long moment. He walked over to the window, looking out at the gray, rain-soaked city. "I was a single father once," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I know what it's like to fight for your child. I know what it's like to feel like the whole world is against you. I know what it's like to be desperate." I felt a chill run down my spine. Julian Sterling, the billionaire CEO, had been a single father. It seemed impossible. He had always seemed so untouchable, so removed from the struggles of ordinary people. "What happened?" I asked, my voice soft. He turned to face me, and for the first time I saw something in his eyes that I hadn't expected. Vulnerability. pain. My wife died, he said. She was killed in a car accident when my daughter was just 3 years old. I was a mess. I didn't know how to be a father. I didn't know how to be anything. I threw myself into work trying to drown out the pain, and I almost lost my daughter because of it. I stared at him, my heart aching. I'm sorry, I said. I didn't know. Nobody knows, Julian said. I don't talk about it. I don't let people see that side of me. But when I heard about your situation, about the custody battle, about your daughter, something clicked. I saw myself in you, and I knew I had to help. Why? I asked, my voice cracking. Why would you help a stranger? Because nobody helped me, Julian said, his voice raw. When I was at my lowest, when I was drowning, nobody threw me a lifeline. I had to claw my way out on my own, and it nearly destroyed me. I don't want that to happen to you. I don't want you to lose your daughter because you were too proud to ask for help. I felt tears prick at the back of my eyes. I don't know what to say, I whispered. I don't know how to accept this. I don't deserve your help. Everyone deserves help, Julian said, his voice firm. Everyone deserves a second chance. And I'm giving you one, David. Take it or leave it. But know that if you leave it, you'll be walking away from the best opportunity you'll ever have. I looked at him, this stranger who had walked into my life and offered me a lifeline. I didn't understand why he was doing this. I didn't understand what he wanted from me. But I knew, with a certainty that burned in my chest, that I couldn't afford to refuse. Okay, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Okay, I accept, thank you. Julian nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his lips. Good, he said. We have a lot of work to do, but first we need to get your daughter back. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Julian, it turned out, was a force of nature. He threw his considerable resources behind my custody battle, hearing the best lawyers, the best social workers, the best everything. He met with the judge, he charmed the court, he did everything in his power to ensure that I would get my daughter back. And it worked. The court ruled in my favor, granting me primary custody of Mia. The day I got the news, I collapsed to my knees, sobbing with relief. Julian was there, his hand on my shoulder, his voice calm and steady. You did it, he said. You fought for her and you won. I couldn't have done it without you, I said, my voice choked with emotion. I owe you everything. You don't owe me anything, Julian said, his voice soft. Just promise me you'll be the father she deserves. I promise, I said, looking up at him. I promise. Mia moved in with me a week later. It was a chaotic, overwhelming, beautiful time. I was learning how to be a full-time father again, and it was harder than I had ever imagined. But it was also the most rewarding thing I had ever done. I was there for the bedtime stories, the morning pancakes, the scraped knees, and the whispered secrets. I was finally, truly her father. And Julian was there too. He became a fixture in our lives, a constant presence that I had never expected. He was there for the school plays and the doctor's appointments. He was there for the birthdays and the holidays. He was there for everything. But there was something else, something I hadn't expected. The more time I spent with Julian, the more I realized that he was not the cold, ruthless man I had always believed him to be. He was kind, generous, and deeply compassionate. He had a gentle soul, a sharp wit, and a laugh that could light up a room. He was also, I realized, incredibly lonely. The first time I noticed it was at a dinner party he had invited me to. It was a lavish affair, filled with the rich and powerful, the glittering elite of the city. Julian was the center of attention, the man everyone wanted to talk to. But as the night wore on, I saw something in his eyes that made my heart ache. A deep, profound sadness. A sense of isolation that no amount of money or power could cure. Later that night, after the party was over, I pulled him aside. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice soft. He looked at me, his eyes searching mine. "I'm fine," he said. "I'm always fine." "Don't lie to me," I said, my voice firm. "I can see it in your eyes. You're not fine, you're lonely." He stared at me for a long moment, and then something shifted in his expression. The walls he had built around himself, the ones that had been there for so long, began to crack. "I've been alone for a long time," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Even when I'm surrounded by people, I'm alone. I don't let anyone in. I don't trust anyone. I don't know how." "You can trust me," I said, taking his hand. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here." He looked at me, his eyes filled with something I couldn't quite name. "Why?" he asked. "Why are you so kind to me?" "Because you were kind to me," I said. "Because you saved me. Because you gave me back my daughter. Because you're a good man, Julian, and you deserve to be happy." He laughed, a soft, broken sound. "I don't know how to be happy," he admitted. "I've forgotten what it feels like." "Then let me teach you," I said. And I did. In the months that followed, I showed him what it meant to be happy. I showed him the simple joys of life, the things that money couldn't buy. I showed him how to laugh, how to love, how to let go of the past. And in the process, I found myself falling in love with him. It was terrifying. I was a single father, a former accountant, a man who had been broken by the world. He was a billionaire, a CEO, a man who could have anyone he wanted. Why would he ever want me? But he did. He told me one night, his voice soft and hesitant. "I know this is crazy," he said. "I know this is impossible, but I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop feeling this. It's like you've opened a door in my heart that I thought was sealed forever." I looked at him, this beautiful, broken man, and I felt my own walls crumbling. "I feel it too," I said. "I've felt it for a long time. I was just too afraid to say anything." "I was too afraid too," he said. "I was afraid of being hurt again. I was afraid of being rejected. But with you, I feel safe. I feel like I can be myself." We kissed, a soft, tentative kiss that turned into something more. A promise, a beginning. The years that followed were the happiest of my life. Julian and I built a life together, a beautiful, chaotic life filled with love and laughter. Mia grew up, a happy, healthy teenager who adored both of her fathers. Julian and I got married, a small, intimate ceremony on a private beach, surrounded by our closest friends. I looked back at the journey that had brought us here, the accountant who had quit his job, the CEO who had shown up at his door, the love that had healed both of us. It had all started with a simple act of kindness, a decision to reach out, a choice to believe that even the most broken people can find happiness. And now I was ready to share our story with the world, a story of love, of healing, of second chances, a story that proved that sometimes the people who seem the most different are actually the most alike. I smiled, my heart full. I had found my forever, and I was never going to let it go. But life, as I had learned, was never that simple. Just when I thought we had found our happily ever after, the universe threw us another curveball. It was a Tuesday afternoon, 3 years into our marriage. I was in Julian's office going over some files when my phone rang. It was Mia's school. My heart seized in my chest. "Mr. Miller," the principal said, her voice strained. "There's been an accident. Mia fell during recess. She's been taken to the hospital." I dropped the phone, my legs giving out beneath me. Julian caught me, his arms strong and steady. "What happened?" he asked, his voice urgent. "It's Mia," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "She's in the hospital." The drive to the hospital was a blur. Julian drove, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, his jaw clenched. I sat in the passenger seat, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Mia was my entire world. The thought of losing her, of losing another person I loved, was unbearable. We arrived at the emergency room to find Mia conscious but pale, her arm in a sling, a gash on her forehead. The doctors said she had fallen from the monkey bars, breaking her arm and suffering a mild concussion. She would be fine, they assured us. She would make a full recovery. But as I looked at my daughter, her eyes filled with tears, I realized how fragile life was, how quickly everything could change. And I realized that I couldn't take anything for granted, not my happiness, not my love, not my family. That night after Mia had fallen asleep, Julian and I sat in the hospital room holding hands. I was so scared, I said, my voice shaking. I thought I was going to lose her. Me too, Julian said, his voice thick with emotion. But she's okay. She's going to be okay. I looked at him, this man who had become my everything. I love you, I said. I love you so much. I love you too, he said, squeezing my hand. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you and Mia are safe and happy. I promise. But promises, even the ones made with the best intentions, can be broken. A few months later, Julian's past came back to haunt us. His father, a man who had been absent from his life for decades, had been diagnosed with a terminal illness. He had reached out, wanting to make amends before it was too late. Julian was torn. His father had been a terrible, abusive man, a man who had hurt him in ways that could never be undone. But he was also dying, and Julian had to decide whether to forgive him or to let him die alone. The decision was agonizing. I watched Julian struggle with it, his nights filled with sleepless torment, his days marked by a heavy silence. I wanted to help him, but I didn't know how. I don't know what to do, he admitted one night, his voice raw. I hate him for what he did to me, but he's my father, he's dying, and I don't want to live with the regret of not giving him a chance. I took his hand, my heart aching. You don't have to forgive him, I said. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do, but if you think that seeing him will help you heal, then you should go. I'll be right there with you. He looked at me, his eyes filled with tears. You'd do that, he asked. You'd come with me. Of course I would, I said. I'm your husband, I'm not going anywhere. The meeting with his father was one of the hardest things Julian had ever done. The old man was frail and broken, a shadow of the monster he had once been. He apologized for everything, his voice cracking with regret. And Julian, after a long, painful silence, forgave him. I forgive you, he said, his voice barely a whisper. Not for you, for me, because I'm tired of carrying this anger. I'm tired of letting you control my life. I'm ready to let it go. His father wept, his body racked with sobs. Thank you, he said. Thank you, Julian. We left the hospital that day, and Julian was a changed man. The weight he had been carrying for so long had finally been lifted. He was free. The years passed, and our love only grew stronger. We faced challenges, moments of doubt, periods of struggle, but we faced them together, united in our commitment to each other and to our family. Mia grew up, graduated from college, and became a successful doctor. She married a wonderful man and had 2 beautiful children of her own. Julian retired from the company, and we spent our golden years traveling the world, exploring new cultures, making new memories. We were happy. We were content. We were exactly where we were supposed to be. And then one day I got sick. It was a sudden, unexpected illness, a cancer that had been lurking in my body for years, undetected. The doctors gave me 6 months, 6 months to live. Julian was devastated. He refused to accept the diagnosis, seeking second opinions, experimental treatments, anything that might give me more time. But I knew it was hopeless. I had made my peace with death. I had lived a full life, a life filled with love and joy and purpose. I had no regrets. I'm not ready to lose you, Julian said, his voice cracking with tears. I can't lose you. I can't do this without you. You can, I said, my voice soft. You are the strongest person I have ever known. You survived your father. You survived the abuse. You built a life out of nothing. You can survive this too. But I don't want to, he said, his voice breaking. I don't want to survive without you. You won't have to, I said. I'll always be with you, in your heart, in your memories, in the love we shared. That love will never die. On the day I died, Julian was by my side, holding my hand, his eyes filled with tears. I love you, he whispered. I love you forever. I love you too, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Forever and always. And then I was gone. But my story didn't end there. Because love, true love, never really ends. It transcends time and space, connecting souls in ways that we can't fully understand. After I died, Julian was lost. He wandered through the days, a ghost of the man he had once been. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't find the will to go on. But then something happened, a miracle, a sign. He was sitting in our garden one afternoon, staring at the flowers I had planted, when a butterfly landed on his hand. It was a monarch, its wings a brilliant orange and black. It stayed there for a long moment, fluttering gently, as if trying to tell him something. And then in a flash of insight he understood. I was with him. I had always been with him. I had never really left. He started to heal slowly, painfully. He found a new purpose, a new reason to live. He started a foundation, a charity dedicated to helping single fathers. He poured his heart and soul into it, finding solace in helping others who had suffered as he had. He never remarried, he never found another love, but he was happy. He was at peace. He knew that I was watching over him, guiding him, loving him from beyond. And one day, many years later, he died. He was surrounded by his children, his grandchildren, the family we had built together. His last words were a whisper, a smile on his face. "I'm coming home," he said. "I'm coming home to you." And then he was gone. But our story didn't end there either, because love, true love, never really ends. It lives on in the hearts of those we leave behind. It echoes through the ages, a testament to the power of the human spirit. I am David Miller. I was an accountant. I was a single father. I was a man who quit his job and found love in the most unexpected place. I was a man who lived a life of purpose, of joy, of meaning. And I am still here, in the memories of those I loved, in the hearts of those I touched, in the legacy I left behind. Because I learned in the end that love is the only thing that matters. Love is the only thing that lasts. Love is the only thing that can heal the deepest wounds, bridge the widest divides, and light the darkest corners of the human soul. I loved Julian Sterling, and he loved me. And that love, that beautiful, imperfect, messy love, changed everything. It changed our lives. It changed our family. It changed the world. And that, I realized, was the greatest gift of all. The gift of love, the gift of hope, the gift of a second chance. So if you're reading this, know that your story is not over. No matter how broken you feel, no matter how dark the days may seem, there is always hope. There is always love. There is always a chance for a new beginning. Because I am proof. I am proof that a single father can find happiness. I am proof that love can heal the deepest wounds. I am proof that even the most broken people can find peace. And I am proof that the story never really ends. It just keeps going, one chapter at a time, one love at a time, one miracle at a time. So go out there, live your life, love with all your heart, believe in the impossible, and never ever give up, because you never know what might be waiting for you just around the corner. A single father, a CEO, a love that changed everything.